So here's my Photoshop file, and it has a few groups, and each of those groups have a few layers. You can download this file from the link in the description below, and you can start practicing with it. Now let me show you what I have in these groups. So the first group is the text, which is a group which contains all the text layers and individual paths for these letters. And then we have a separate letter as black, just to make them look like they are the shadows of these off-white letters in the American word. And this is the black border, and this is the background, the red background behind this text. And then we have another group called ball, and it has all the layers for the ball. And then we have this other group, and it has all the shape layers that make up this character, the player. And then we have this logo background. Let me show you individually. And it has all the layers for that make these shapes. And then in the end we have this background. Let's turn them back on, and we can import this file into After Effects. So let's go to Import, File, and we can select the file. This is the file. Select the composition, retain layer sizes, and select editable layer styles, and we can click OK. And if we see that that Photoshop file is automatically converted into an After Effects composition, and if we click on this, it opens up the composition, and the groups that we had in that Photoshop file are also converted into further pre-compositions. So if we click them, it takes us to another composition. Same for this one, for this one, and for this one as well. Now we will start with animating the background. So if we go to this composition, first we need to make sure that this off-white background has two parts. Initially I downloaded this file from freepik.com, and you can go and check that out. And initially from that source it comes as a single layer, okay, this off-white layer, and I need to separate these side parts of this part and this part, and the central part of this. Let me show you. There is this central part of this shape, and there are these side shapes. I need to separate this part and this part from this central part. So for that, what I'll do is that I'll select this layer, and I will duplicate this one, so we have two of those off-white layers. So I'll select the second copy and delete all the points, shape points for this upper layer. Let's hide the previous copy temporarily. So this is how it looks. Okay, so this is how this copy looks, and this is how the initial copy looks. The new copy, the new shape will stay here, but this the original copy, I will move this one from here, cut it from this composition, and I'll take it to the text composition. No, not the text composition. I'll take it above the background in the main composition. I'll paste it here. This way we have two backgrounds, one that covers the text as well, and the other one that just covers this this blue background, blue or purple, whatever it is. The purpose of separating this one was to connect it to the text layer, so that if we move the text layer, the background for the text also moves with it, rather than moving alone. Okay, so this background is now connected to the text layer. Later, when we animate the position and scale of the text layer, this layer, this background must move with it. So that's why we had to do this. Now let's go to this layer and animate this. Let's press S on the keyboard to open the scale property, and we can add the keyframes here. First keyframe is for the 100% scale, and the initial keyframe at 0 second will be 0 scale. So as we move from 0 to 1 second, the scale goes from 0 to 100%, and that's how it looks. Right, let me hide all the other layers so you can clearly see the difference. This is how it looks. Now, because the movement is in a constant speed, let me show you the speed graph. Now you can see that the speed is constant. It's not going up and down. It's just same speed from start to finish, which is not natural and looks very boring and unnatural. So we can select the keyframes, go to keyframe assistance, and select easy ease. What it does is that it makes the speed 0 in the start, and the speed increases in the center, and then it goes down in the end, which makes it look natural. So it starts slow, gets faster in the middle, and ends slow, so it looks more natural and not boring. Then we can go to the text layer, and we apply the same kind of animation to this as well. Add a keyframe for 100% position, scale, and then we add 0, and we select them, and easy is same as before. And if you play it, each of those layers come into the scene one by one. Now we need to animate this text as well, so go to the text composition. Let's temporarily hide this red and black background. Now if you look at these layers, these layers are individual layers. You can see them, this one, and the shadows are also separate layers, same shape but in a different color and different position. But they are placed at different positions in the layers panel as well. So the first layer is on the 9th position, and its shadow is on the 17th position. And to make them to deal with them efficiently, we might need them to be placed closer. So I'll select these two with the selection tool, and I will drag them to the top, and now they are placed together. Same for the other letter. This is the letter and this is the shadow layer. I will drag it to the top like this. and same for all the other letters. Now what we need to do is to give an opacity animation. So opacity 100% and opacity 0%. So it moves from 0 to 100%. And we select this property, copy, select the other layer in the start, and we paste that property. So you can see that the effect or property animation and the keyframes are copied to it. Good. Now we move slightly ahead in the timeline, and we select the two layers for the second letter, and we paste the same opacity keyframes, and now each of those letters appear into the scene one by one after the other. And then we again move slightly ahead in the timeline and paste the effect. Again, move ahead, select the layers, press Ctrl+V and hit the button U to show the keyframes. Move forward and so on. Keep doing this until you reach the final letter. Alright, we have reached to the final level. This is how it looks. Now the animation is really slow. We need to compress it to just 1 second. So we select all the keyframes and hold the Alt key, select click the last keyframe and drag it to 1 second. And now these keyframes are compressed and the animation will be faster. Great. Now let's show up or turn on the background layers. Now we need to move this football text. It's just one layer. We move it to the layers below the layers that are the background layers, and this should be in the bottom. We hit P on the keyboard to open the position control, and we add a keyframe, and in the first keyframe we move it upward. Easy ease, and this is how it looks. Great. Now the problem is that we have animated the text to in the start, but the animation should start after 1 second. So it's simple. We can just go to the composition, select all these keyframes and move all these keyframes forward 1 second, maybe 1.5 second, because the text animation in the main composition ends at 1.5 second. And this is how this main composition looks so far. Now we need to make the player, the character, appear into the scene. So we add a position keyframe at 2.5 second, and then we go back to the 1.5 second and move it downward. Alright, and this is how it will appear. Alright, easy ease. Now the problem is that the character appears in the start, which should not be the case. So what we need to do is that we trim this composition, this layer, the player layer, and we drag it to 1 second, so it won't be visible in the start, and it will only be visible after 1.5 second. But the problem is that it's still visible while it goes up. It should not be visible in this area, only in this area. So what we need to do is that we need to create a mask. So we right click, go to new, and shape layer. So we have created a shape layer, and this shape layer should be this shape. And make sure that this shape layer is placed above the player layer, and we go to player, go to the TRK mat. If you don't see this option, you can click on this button to reveal the new options. And go to TRK mat for the player, and you can select alpha mat. Now this layer will work as this shape layer will work as a mask for the player, and now it's only visible in the area where it should be. Now let's animate the ball. So turn on the ball. Initially it should be at this position in the end, so the final keyframe for the position should be this keyframe. And we also need to rotate this. Press R on the keyboard to open the rotation property, and this is how it rotates, but that's not how a ball rotates, because the anchor point is here. We need to drag the anchor point to the center. To drag the anchor point, make sure that you have this tool selected, otherwise you won't be able to drag this anchor point. Okay, now if the anchor point is in the center, rotating this layer will rotate the ball around its center. Alright, we need to add a position rotation keyframe as well, and if we press U, we see all the keyframes on this particular layer. So we move back in time, we add 2 more keyframes, but for these 2 keyframes, the position should be this, and the rotation should be this. It goes like this. Yes. And we move back further in time, and we add 2 more keyframes, but for these keyframes we move it out of the scene, and the rotation as well. So this is how it should look like. Now the problem is that the position, the movement is not very sharp. It's a curved pen. So we go to pen tool, and we hold the Alt key and click on this point. Now it's a sharp movement, so it comes down, bounces his head, and stops here. Now it's when it stops in the end, it stops suddenly because these keyframes are not easy eased, the speed is constant, and that's why it stops suddenly as the keyframe ends. So we need to select these final keyframes, right click, keyframe assistant, and easy ease. So the final keyframe has a 0 velocity, so it stops naturally. Although it's not very important, because the movement is really fast and quick, you won't even notice it. Alright, looks good. Now as the ball bounces his head must move a little, right, as a response to the bounce. So what we need to do is that we have to select the player. We go to puppet tool, we add a pinpoint here, another one in here, and the third one in here. With these tools we can morph the shapes, right? So this will create a mesh, and inside the mesh we have deform, and in the deform we have 3 puppet pins. And when we add these puppet pins, each of these puppet pins have a position, and the keyframes for these positions, their positions are automatically added. So if we click the name and press U, we will automatically be shown the keyframes. So we need to add more keyframes for the position. We move further in time and move his head a little and his neck a little, maybe head a little more. And for this one, nothing changes. For this one, nothing has to change. We move forward in time, copy the first keyframes, Ctrl C and Ctrl V, so that we have the same position in the start and in the end. We just move in the middle and then go back to its original place position. Yes, and we can right click, easy ease, perfect. Let's see how the final composition looks like.